Welcome back to video part 5 of our MIS video Python series. We're now at loops, so we want to repeat and reinforce what we learned in the 5th semester about loops. So what do? What is a loop? A loop is a quite helpful construct where we can write some lines of code which do then repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat for a certain amount of iterations as long as some condition is met or until it isn't met anymore, or for a certain number of times, like for example 4 steps, 6 steps, whatever we define, or as long as there are elements within an array, a list, right? So basically we can write a block of code which is then repeated over and over again until something is worked through. For example, time series data or a matrix or whatever we want to work through. There are two major loops we can use. One is the for loop, which runs for a certain amount of steps, which we define in advance, like 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps, or until the loop is until the array is done. So we have worked through every element in the array. Or we could do a while loop, which runs until the certain condition isn't met anymore. So as long as the condition is met, the while loop runs. So the for loop feels like the more easier one, the more intuitive one. But for the for loop, we need to know how often we want to loop through the loop before we do start it. While the while loop has the advantage that we do not have to know that, we just run it until the condition isn't met anymore. So it's more for an not so easy to plan out scenario. So probably it's even more versatile, if you want to say it like that. However, for loop is more intuitive, and we had both loops in the 5th semester, and this semester we only want to look at the for loop because it's more intuitive. So let's just reinforce loops with that one and start with a for loop here. So for a for loop, we need a counter. That's the first thing we want to have. So how do we make a counter in the for loop? And Python gives us an easy tool which is called range, with which we can count how often we loop through the loop. And for that, we have a range function which has 3 elements: a start, an end, and a step element. And it basically tells us we start with a certain number. So let's say 1, for example. And then we say loop through the loop here, through the repeat the blocks of code we write here until the end condition is met. So the number is iterated to the threshold of the end number. Let's say it's 10, this is 1, and then loop until the number 1 is increased until 10, and if it reaches 10, stop it. Stop the loop. And how do we increase the start value, the start variable? Well, by the step function, where we say how large the steps are. In the easiest case, the most intuitive case, just 1. So we go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, because we always increase with a step of 1. But we could do 2, 3, 4, whatever step we like. For example, if we want to hop over or leave out some data points for whatever reason. Let's bring that to reality. Let's just write a for loop. So for, then we need a variable name which we can use in the loop. Let's say that could be I, that could be X. Let's say just X is in the range of, and let's now have our starting variable. Let's say we start with 1. We loop until we have the end function 6. And we increase it by 1. So now we do the double point. So as we would use an if function, it's the same logic. The double point, and now what follows with an indent, so it's not written to the full left, but with the indent here, is then part of the loop. So this could be part of the loop, then this could be part of the loop. So, and then this isn't anymore, right? So this is basically the logic we follow here. So let's bring that to life. let's just say we want to check what's in the loop here. So let's print x, because this is a variable. Now we should have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the next time there will be as 6. So we go, so let's just print it for a second. So 1. So x is 1. We print that. Then we increase x by 1 because the step is 1. So x is now 2. Is that in the range because the end is 6? Yeah, 2 is below 6. So print 2, increase by 1, so 3. Is 3 lower than 6? Yes. Print 3, now we're here, increase by 1, lower than 6, print 4. Increase by 1, 5, 5 lower than 6, yes, print 5. Increase 5 by 1, 6. Is 6 still in the range? No, because now we've reached the threshold of the loop is done. 6 is exactly 6. Now we break the loop, we stop the loop, and we go out of the loop to the next line of code, which is written here to the left. This is outside of the loop, all right? I can prove that to you because this line should only be executed after the loop. Loop is done. And you can see this is only executed after we've looped 5 times through the loop. And we can even do that a bit more beautiful if we want to. We could basically say our for output counter is x as a string, and this is below 6, hence continue. And now we can see for output counter 1 is below 6, hence continue. So the full logic we have here is displayed now here, and then the loop is done. All right. So this is our first for loop. We can even do, let's just do a second one. Let's just say, okay, this was with the range function. Now let's do a for loop with an array, because we could basically have a time series data or whatever data, list of data within an array, and want to loop through each element of the array to just process the data one by one. So first of all, we need an array. So we build in our new variable loop array our array, which is basically in these brackets, in these columns here. And we just start with the element apple. Then, I don't know, 1, then 2, then let's say banana. Yes. So this is now our loop array. And now we want to loop through that. And it's basically similar. So for x or for I in, whatever we prefer, in now, not range, but now within this array. So just loop array. Then the double point, then the indent, and then what we want to show. Let's just print x. And then once we're done, print outside of the loop, so to the left, that the second loop is done. All right. And the second loop is done. So now this should print apple. Then it should print 1, then 2, then banana. Then the loop is done, so then it should print the second loop is done. And this was the first loop, and then we have apple, 1, 2, banana, second loop is done, as it should be. So cool. Now we're done with loops, and you are up for your next exercise. We have 2 exercises. You first solve the first one, then I will explain the second exercise in the video where the solution for the exercise 5 is. So the first exercise you have to complete is, please create a loop that only records odd numbers between 0 and 100. And we assume that a 0 is, by the way, an even number. So we start counting from the 1, which is the first odd number, then it should be 3, then a 5, then a 7, and so forth, until you reach the last odd number in the range between 0 and 100. Try to solve that. Solution will be in the next video. Have fun.